Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this online screening of the artwork created through the Natur and Byth Arts Engagement Programme. If you're new to the programme, Natur and Byth is Wales's flagship species recovery programme. It's a partnership between Natural Resources Wales and 9 environmental charities, with 11 projects taking place across the country. The programme is mainly funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, but also with additional support from 5 other funders, including Welsh Government, Arts Council of Wales, the Esme Fairbairn Foundation, and the Landfill Disposals Tax Community Scheme. Natur and Byth has 2 key aims: to save 67 threatened species by implementing ecological management and interventions, but also to connect people with their local nature and spread understanding of Wales's wonderful natural heritage. As part of that, the programme is exploring new ways to nature connection, like our arts engagement programme. Through our arts engagement programme, we wanted to explore how the science-driven conservation sector and the arts can work together, whether creative practice can help people connect more deeply with their local nature, and if that connection can also support enhanced well-being. With guidance from Ado Creative, we worked with 10 incredible artists, each linked to a different project, place, and community. And from August 2024 to March 2025, they explored how to reimagine our species and habitats in ways that would help people connect more deeply with them. Many of us already working on the project weren't sure what to expect, as we had had less experience in the fine arts world. But the process and outcomes have been wonderful to see. The artists have found powerful ways to help people empathize with threatened species and embody our precious habitats, leading to deeper connections and reported improvements in well-being. And now we're so excited to share some of that work with you. We hope it helps you feel connected to the species and habitats too, and maybe even inspires you to explore your local nature in a new way. It's certainly done that for me. Before we begin screening the work of our artists, we've got 3 short messages to share. 2 from some of our funders and 1 from the Natur and Byth programme manager.
Efallai mae ffeithiau a ffigyrau Brydeinig bob dydd y coleg, ond emosiwn a theimladau Brydeinig y celfyddydau. Bydd pan mae artistiaid preswyl Natur and Byth wedi bod ar ôl allweddol i'w chwarae, mwyn helpu cyrraedd nod y rhaglen hon o ailgysylltu pobl gyda natur, ein lles ni fel pobl ac ar bydd ein rhywogaethau o dan bygythiad. Mae cyngor celfyddydau Cymru yn falch iawn i bod yn cefnogi'r rhaglen hon, gan ein bod ni wedi ymrwymo i hyrwyddo rôl bwysig y celfyddydau wrth fynd i'r afal ar argyfyngau hinsawdd a natur. Rydyn ni wedi gosod cyfiawnder hinsawdd yn un o'n 6 egwyddor strategol, ac yn ein cynllun cyfiawnder hinsawdd y celfyddydau a datblygwyd mewn partneriaeth â Chyfoeth Naturiol Cymru. Rydyn ni wedi amlinellu camau y byddwn ni'n ei cymryd mwyn cefnogi mwy o greadigrwydd i osbrydoli pobl i weithredu dros cyfiawnder hinsawdd. Pan geswyd gyfle yn ddiweddar i glywed yr artistiaid yn siarad am ei gwaith, wnaethon ni sôn am ei gwaith fel cyfieithu, o drosi ffeithiau a ffigyrau, iaith gwyddonol, straeon, arfonion a theimladau. Wnaethon ni sôn am roi llais i bobl ac am gysylltu, ein cysylltu ni gyda'n llefydd, ein diwylliannau, ein cerdd a'n cymunedau, mwyn datal y pellter rhwng Gymru, a'n hamgylchedd, a'n gyhyddu ni yn ôl at ein gilydd. Wnaethon ni sôn am gyfuno mathau gwahanol o wybodau, colegol, emosiynol a diwylliannol, ac am herio ystradebau negyddol am rywogaethau fel yslimod, cyfau cop a mysod, drwy gynnig persbectif gwahanol ar y byd. Mae'r cyfoeth o syniadau, teimladau a cysylltiadau sydd wedi blodeuo o dan ofal o'r artistiaid yn testio i bŵer y celfyddydau i drawsnewid ein perthynas gyda natur. A gobeithio yn fawr y bydd hwn yn annog llawer mwy o fydweithio rhwng artistiaid ac ecolegwyr yn y dyfodol, ar ein lles ni fel unigolion ac er lles natur.
Pnawn da pawb, my name is John Clark. I'm the Programme Manager for Natur and Byth, and I'm just going to say a few short words before we move on to the films. And that's to say a huge thank you to our artists. So to our 10 residencies and 12 artists in total who worked across Natur and Byth with all of our projects that were focused on species most at risk of extinction or under threat in Wales. We always wanted to work with artists in Natur and Byth. And the reason for that is we have a lot of scientists, a lot of ecologists, a lot of scientists working across the programme. But what artists can bring to the nature emergency agenda is a way to look at it from a different perspective and to really explore what that feels like for the people, the communities living in these areas where these species are so rare, so under threat. And really, we've been blown away by the insights these creative professionals working across the programme have had on the plight of how to save species within Wales. So diolch yn fawr iawn, a huge thank you to all of our artists. And just to say that you can go back and see their work on the new website. So there's a new Natur and Byth website that launches today. So you can at your leisure go back and see the final pieces and also see some of the images, the process of making the artwork with all the communities across Wales that our artists were working within. And that will be in the People's Collection for Wales, which is an archive run by the National Library for Wales in Aberystwyth. And those will be online. Huge thank you to our principal funder, the Arts Council of Wales, for supporting these residencies. This couldn't be done without their support. And of course, our main funder for the programme, which is the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So please enjoy the films, diolch yn fawr, and enjoy.
The Natur and Byth Partnership is Wales's flagship species recovery project. It unites 9 environmental charities with Natural Resources Wales to deliver the country's largest natural heritage and outreach programme to save species from extinction and reconnect people to nature. We invited artists, makers, designers and other creatives with a collaborative and participatory approach and an interest in communicating wider ecological issues to undertake associate artist residencies as part of the Natur and Byth Arts Engagement Programme. The aim of the artist residency programme was to rethink the way we see species. Nature has an amazing, well-documented ability to help us heal and lift our feelings of physical and mental well-being. In creative activities and mini projects, the artists worked with audiences, specifically targeting those with low physical and/or mental well-being, to tell the fascinating stories of our most vulnerable species through arts and culture.
Fi'n creu ffenest gwydr lliw. Dyma fath o cerflun sydd wedi cael ei ysbrydoli gan lliwiau o'r samplau ansawdd dŵr. Mae'n dibynnu ar faint o'r nitrad a'r ffosfad sydd yn y ddŵr. Mewn i'r ymchwil o'r hanes o'r taith pererindod oedd yn dilyn y ffynonau ar draws y llyn. So rai o'r ymchwiliadau wedi'i wneud oedd wneud rhan o'r taith cerdded o'r pererindod ar draws y llyn, cymryd sketches ar y ffordd, a just edrych ar y ffordd ma dŵr yn llifo, so rhoi drops o ddŵr ar darn o papur a gweld sut mae'r siap yn newid ar y tudalen. Sydd braidd yn edrych fel rhywbeth allan o eglwys, ond sydd hefyd bach yn edrych fel map.
For me, this project was really about community and about pulling people together and finding ways to connect through being in natural environments. I wanted to find a secretive species but also a secretive habitat, so I started looking at the fen-raft spider, and one of its habitats is Crumlin Bog. And Crumlin Bog is this area of Swansea that is really in the centre of the city, but nobody knows it's there. I was interested in it as a kind of marginalised space, and for me I wanted to engage queer communities in that space, and so a marginalised group, finding a marginalised place and then being held in that place and feeling belonging and safety and community felt really important to the narrative of the project.
One of the 10 briefs mentioned the idea of interviewing local people, which is something I have done. I do a lot in my work. So the art I've produced for this project lends itself to the theme of ecology in a way that it's highlighting the situation around the high brown fritillary butterfly, which has got its last colony in Wales at Old Castledown. I interviewed the people most closely related to the project, the volunteers, the commoners and the ecologists there, and used their words to create lyrics for a song which has been composed by Welsh composer Emma Damon Thomas. And the song is a clarion call for the high brown fritillary butterfly. The song has a very tragic start, but it moves through a middle part where a resolution is found and it ends on a hopeful note. And I think hope is what people are looking for, but it's also an imagining of another future where we do make the right decisions and we can come together and focus on nature.
Nes I ddewis I wneud gwaith yn benodol oedd yn gweithio efo pobl ifanc a cael mewn i ysgolion, oherwydd nid yn unig mae'r rhan o'n gweithio fel artist i bod yn blynyddoedd dwytha gwneud gwaith celf, ond hefyd hwyluso sesiynau. Mae bob tro y cyfle i weithio efo pobl ifanc yn arbennig, a dwi'n meddwl mae ffordd maen nhw'n edrych ar gelf, ac hefyd yn brosiect yma'n edrych ar byd natur mor ysbrydoledig a maen nhw'n gymaint egni. Dwi'n meddwl mae celf yn bwysig iawn i brosiectau fel Natur am Byth. Oherwydd lot o weithiau pan ni'n edrych ar rhywiogaethau prin neu byd natur, da ni'n gallu lot o ffigurau, a mae'n anodd iawn weithiau i gysylltu efo ffigurau, felly mae celf yn rhoi'r cyfle yna i bobl gysylltu yn emosiynol efo'r rhywiogaethau. Oherwydd os da ni'n gweld darn o gelf neu'n clywed sŵn neu yn profi ffilm amdan yr rhywogaeth, da ni efo cyfle lot mwy gysylltu efo ar lefel personol yn hytrach na clywed amdano nhw neu darllen nhw fel y pethau yma sy'n bell i ffwrdd. Oherwydd go iawn maen nhw o gwmpas ni yn cynefin ni, a fel arfer jyst lawr y lôn i ni.
Film and digital processes has really enabled me to interrogate some important issues with this project. And the art film, When Sally Met Sally, straddles between scientific reports explaining the significance and importance of the stonefly and the story of Sally. This interchange between fiction and reality offered scope for creative interventions with community members. The workshops included dance performances, film presentations, painting, drawings, discussion, and then shared memories. A main focus of discussion with the members of the Rainbow community was about isolation and invisibility leading to loneliness in old age.
Mae cael dod allan I lefydd gwych yma fel Corslyca, cael profi'r natur, a wedyn cael defnyddio hwnna wedyn I greu gwaith efo pobl ifanc a creu gweithio celf, mae o'n anhygoel a dwi'n lwcus iawn y gael fo'n swydd.
Well, we're made of nature, we come from nature, I think we belong to nature, and to be part of that process is good for my soul. I hope my art will help highlight the situation around depleting nature.
To work closely with environmental experts to unveil some of the world's ecological and environmental mysteries, I believed would not only be fascinating, but a special privilege, and it has been.
If we don't have initiatives like these, I think the subject will be ending up at the bottom of the list, and we would deprive ourselves of a chance of making a positive change.
When you invite artists to explain things in a different way and encourage engagement in a different way, it makes it physical, it makes it real, and it makes it maybe potentially more digestible. And I think that then encourages engagement, which will encourage care and a want to protect some of these spaces and species.
This is the story of when Sally of Bangor-on-Dee met the scarce yellow Sally stonefly in 1959.
When Sally met Sally, who would have thought it? I, Sally from Bangor-on-Dee, a lover of nature, obsessed with finding stoneflies, would meet the stonefly of all stoneflies, the scarce yellow Sally, all those years ago. On the 10th of February 1959, I met the ecologist Hugh Bernard Noel Hines on the riverbank when he discovered the scarce yellow Sally. I was so excited, it was a special moment. I can remember it like yesterday. It was cold, but you didn't feel the cold when you were young. I was wearing a lovely polka dot dress, hats and wellies. I still wear that hat and wellies to this very day. I was so carefree then. I would walk along the River Dee looking and listening to nature. I listened to 50s and 60s music, and I always loved dancing. I still dance, although maybe a bit slower these days.
When we were surveying for the scarce yellow stonefly, we used a technique called kick sampling. This involves getting into the river and disturbing the rocks and cobbles on the bottom of the river with your foot and waiting for the river to wash the dislodged sallies into a net. This meant that we could bring them to the riverbank and identify them. The scarce yellow sally has a really important ecological role. It helps the environment around it become more stable and more regulated. This means it's more resilient if change or pressure happens to the environment.
I have always been inspired by the poetry of ecologist Edward Newman, written in 1861. Such beautiful observations of nature. Lastly come the heavy stoneflies, known in science as Perlina, very like domestic crickets, but are river-loving insects. Their heads rather broad and flattened, their eyes small and round and distant, forewings flat and hind wings folded, larger, broader than the forewings, larvae more than half aquatic, nimbly swimming in the water, nimbly diving in the water, nimbly running on the bottom. I would collect the shells of the stoneflies close to the riverbank. I was a dreamer, happiest surrounded by the natural world. I was often seen looking for bugs and searching the river for the scarce yellow sally. It was amazing that day to know that she did exist. After meeting the ecologist Hugh Bernard Noel Hines, I was keen to find out more about his work. I found his report published by Liverpool University in the local library. Although the stonefly had been known for over a century in other UK rivers, this was a special moment for this area. It was such a rare find.
These are both points at which I had collected regularly during the winters of previous years without finding the insect. During the post-war period, this part of the river had been slowly recovering from mild pollution, which had at times caused scattered growths of sewage fungus downstream as far as Bangor. It seems very probable that before 1958 the scarce yellow sally had been confined by this pollution to deep water in downstream of Bangor. On the 10th of March 1959, a further visit to Bangor and a morning's hard work produced 12 nymphs of the scarce yellow sally, and of these 9 emerged as adults, 4 males, 5 females, in the laboratory between the 18th of March and the 2nd of April. The nymphs were scarce and were found only far out in the river where the flow was swift and deep.
So back in 1959, when the species was described, there was more of a sense of communal use to the waterways within the UK. So people would spend their weekends bathing in the waters, exploring the river's edge, and just generally relaxing and using that as their downtime. Compared to now, where we use the rivers far less due to advancements in modern technology, but also due to pollution and the status of our waterways. The River Dee, for example, has hundreds of sewage discharge points which go into the river, which make an unsuitable environment for species such as the scarce yellow sally.
Nimbly swimming in the water, nimbly diving in the water, nimbly running on the bottom, hiding under little pebbles, often coming out and creeping on the bank and on the grasses, crawling up the trunks of willows, hiding in the cracks and crannies. When the pupa is quite ready to become a winged imago, then it grasps the bark of willows, or the rounded stems of rushes, or the pliant blades of grasses, by its hooked claws firmly anchored. Then the back splits open lengthwise, and the perfect fly emerges, flying softly over the streamlet to become the prey of fishes. Seeing this, the wily angler makes an imitation stonefly which the fatal hook concealing is appended to the horsehair and dropped softly on the surface of the bright and dimpled river. And there, scarce a moment floating tempts the lurking trout or grayling irresistibly to seize it.
So in 2017, after years and years of survey work, a biologist known as John David Boker rediscovered the scarce yellow Sally in the River Dee. And this was a huge achievement, not only for the species, but just for biologists everywhere rejoicing that species had come back from being invisible to being back in our lives. So in 2021 we were contacted by BugLife about becoming a project partner for the Scarce Yellow Sally project. Chester Zoo has a proven track record with animal husbandry and developing care techniques that we were looking to impart on the project to see if we could potentially have a safeguarded population of Scarce Yellow Sally here at Chester Zoo. So what made the project incredibly rewarding and challenging for us at the same time was that there wasn't a lot of information on how to look after the Scarce Yellow Sally. There's limited data available about how they actually behave in the wild, let alone in the setting where we could care for them here at Chester Zoo. So everything we learned about them was not only new to us, but often new to science as well. And getting to know how the species reproduces, how they feed, their general behaviour, and interesting things like different times of the day they'd be more active, and learning that cycle, develop and be successful in reproducing the Scarce Yellow Sally here at Chester Zoo.
Life around the river has changed so much. It was always a busy place for picnics, swimming and meetups. I also remember the River Dee bursting its banks. I was 15 years old. Our house downstairs was flooded. It was awful because my mum couldn't swim. She was trapped upstairs until the water receded. At the time, there were no flood defences in place as there are now to halt the water spilling over the banks, across the road and right down the main street. The Royal Oak close to the bridge was the first in line to be flooded. The school bus to Penley High School was cancelled as the roads around the village were also flooded. As a teenager, this was all very exciting. I had a rowing boat and remembered rowing down Bangor-on-Dee High Street and managed to rescue an old man who couldn't swim, rowing him to safety further down the street. Everyone helped each other in those days, sweeping and mopping water out of each other's homes whenever you could. Today, the Scarce Yellow Sally is even more relevant to me. As I get older, I feel unlike my younger self, more invisible since I retired. I felt a bit lost, but I do things to feel empowered and get involved with stuff around me. I still love to dance and listen to 50s and 60s music and have joined a local choir. I wander around the countryside, close to the river, and reflect on the beauty and fragility of our natural surroundings. I still search most days around the river for the Scarce Yellow Sally.
Sometimes I like to switch off.
Yeah.
Like in the mornings, I wake up, I feel a bit anxious or something. I will make myself a cup of coffee, sit in the garden for about half an hour, switch off, listen to the sound of nature.
Mae Coed Pengellu yn warchodfa natur genedlaethol. Mae'n un o'r darnau mwyaf o goedwig dderi hynafol sydd ar ôl yng Ngorllewin Cymru.
Barbastelle bats, they're one of our rarest species in the UK, and they're only found in the southern parts of England and then here in Pembrokeshire. So they've got like some reconstruction.
What's the name, innit? What's the one, innit? Yeah, tea. Hey, no tea, come on. You say
What a bit of a tiny one. Kind of live in a basket.
That's not too low, is it, Gary?
What was the one that was still from Natur?
I don't remember when the season was.
It's the same thing as what we do.
anybody decided to come and live in here.
Somehow it required moving.
Yeah.
How much is the rent?
I heard different. I heard some voices.
Were they our voices or were they other people?
Somebody else.
Yeah, I thought I heard other voices as well. Yeah.
Yna daw ystlumod di yn y gwyll I Bengelli.
uwch mynydd, a wedyn mae yna ffordd i chi fynd lawr. Da chi gorfod bod yn ofalus achos mewn ffordd mae reit serth. Ti mond yn medru mynd i lawr yna da, pan mae o basically bod chi'n gallu cael y dŵr o'r ffynnon pan mae hi'n low tide.
It is very close to the sea, isn't it? You do get this mixture of sort of salt water and fresh water. You know, there's a Catholic tradition of to make a pilgrimage to Rome once during your lifetime. And they said 2 pilgrimages to Bardsey would count as a pilgrimage to Rome. You had lots of pilgrims walking down the Llyn Peninsula to get to Bardsey. There was a chain of wells down the peninsula which were linked to pilgrimages.
So it's like an energy line, and on it there are many Michael and Mary churches. So it's said to be, like a ley line running right through. What came first, where the wells were identified before or after that, I don't know, but we're talking about a time when water was not only precious but divine, when people had a whole different attitude towards water.
So bod pilgrims cyn iddyn nhw mynd i Ynys Enlli, os oedden nhw'n medru cael rhywfaint o'r dŵr, oedd beth bynnag oedden nhw yn, ydy'r gair, dymuno, bod fatha wish, oedden nhw'n gael o.
On top of the cliffs, there was a church, St Mary's Chapel, which you can't see anything of now. And there was a festival time around the church where there was a tradition that you needed to go down to the well, fill your mouth with water from the well, get back up to the church and run 3 times around the church without spilling any water, and that would grant your wish. The story was that the first person was a girl was told this story. She met a lady who kind of walked over the sea to the well and told her that this is what she should do to get her wish. And that was the kind of origin story of the legend.
Dyna sy'n ma'n mynd yn ôl ers canrifoedd. O'n i wedi cael yn dwyn i fyny fel bod o yn dŵr sanctaidd, achos bod ni'n dod o'r ardal hefyd. Na mewn ffordd da ni yn gwybod am hanes yr ffynnon mewn ffordd felly de.
I suppose really that water is healing, and it's also powerful because it can absorb lots of bad and still maintain its goodness until it gets too much.
Involved in Christianity is baptism, and it's long been a tradition and still continuing in many places that water from the holy well is taken to the church for use in baptism.
Dwi'n dweud bod rhan fwyaf o pen yma wedi cael ei bydyddio efo dŵr ffynnon fair de.
I mean, in a way it is divine, isn't it? It's extraordinary stuff. I can quite understand how, water was seen as very precious and healing.
Da ni gyd wedi cael yn bydyddio rili efo dŵr ffynnon fair. Do'n traddodiad mewn ffordd yn lle da ni'n byw lle.
How old is this hill? 100? A million? 100 million years in the making? Or more? More than me. Old enough to gather moss, to have its sharp crags and crevices quilted in green, to be made soft to the touch, gentle to the feet, and kind to the heart. This hill has always been old, but not me. I once stood at its base, my breath mingling with the early morning mist, excited, anxious, not knowing what the world had prepared, but ready for a climb that now I cherish as a memory. Moss still hugs its slopes, as it always has, filling cracks, creeping through tiny faults, soothing a quiet decay. Years of clawing and scrambling over this brooding, rocky mass has left me grey, but this hill has always been green, wrapped in soft, creeping tendrils that long ago started to arrive and spread across its skin. Every surface, rough and wrinkled, patiently waits for its green companion to arrive. And they have always come. But from where? How does a mountain get its moss? Is it the hopes and dreams of the young, scattered to the wind, drifting in the mountain mists, searching for fertile ground where they might grow and flourish? Is it their fears and nightmares that have settled here, to cast a delicate green veil over a misguided past? Silent fall moss. This is a moss that absorbs the echoing roar of cascading water, softening its impact.
For those with a fear of falling and the tumbling rush that crushes dreams.
Moonlight whisper moss.
Mwsogol llawrych y lleuad.
This moss glows, but only on the darkest of nights.
For those afraid of shadows that press too close at the end of each day.
Ripple moss.
Mwsogol y man donau.
A moss that appears to ripple across the ground, mimicking summer streams, constantly in motion.
For those who fear being stuck, to flow past stones that block their way.
Frost thorn moss.
Mwsogol pigau'r barrig.
It produces sharp, ice-like tips when disturbed, capturing the light, even on the greyest of days.
For those who fear they will not have the strength to cope.
Storm curl moss.
Mwsogol y gilfach gwyd.
One that predicts the coming of bad weather by curling into a tight ball, creating its own little refuge from the battering winds, wherever it might grow.
For those who fear the unknown and search endlessly for sanctuary never found.
Thunderclap moss.
Mwsogol clec y daran.
This moss has soft, velvety leaves that stiffen to dampen the reverberations that follow violent sounds.
For the fear of sudden loud noises and the chaos that follows.
Marsh veil moss.
Mwsogol mantell y ffignen.
This one cloaks itself in stillness by capturing the morning mist.
For those who fear being seen and yearn to disappear.
Dawnlight moss.
Mwsogol gres y wawr.
This moss sparkles in the first light of dawn, drinking sunlight for sustenance.
For those who fear hunger, as even the coldest nights give way to warmth and growth.
Crown moss.
Mwsogol coronog.
A regal moss that grows in perfect isolation, forming a crown of golden green fronds atop of lone rocks.
For the fear of relying on others and a desire to stand alone.
Eternal thread moss.
Mwsogol yr adafedd di-derfyn.
This is my favorite little moss. One that spreads with golden filaments, weaving eternal bonds.
For the fear that everyone I love might leave and the hope that my fear of loss will fade.
Clinging to our fears in the cracks and crevices. Hope's fragile, gentle as moss on stone, find light in the shadows, to hold, to soften, and to heal.
Shrill. Somewhere, a tiny power tool is operating on September. At the slim-leafed scarlet pea flower thriving on the bitter dregs of ash, as if this was the promised land prepared for it. Out of the strong came forth sweetness, transposed to the carcass of an industry. The leastness of it has us poking, bluntly prying in among the nearly white noise of a million reed blades, to find the singular slight upshift to a pitch we hear as shrill, as just controlled hysteria, though whose, that is the question, among the swish and sway. The sound of here, near, now, and now again. On this edge, balancing on air, small fidget body bumped aside by the wind, jiggling back to barge into the one plunge pool of pink after another. Each puce implosion an ecstasy. Oh, but it's never enough. Again. B in particular. Its relentless nizzling at the point at issue is an inquisition. On each urgent instance, everything depends. B is a believer. By the grace of serendipity, this shoreline buffeted by tide, by wind, this is the promised land, the wilderness, the promised land again. Fugue in the key of B. The colour of yes, the colour of new, the colour of plenty, of gather and grow. A colour like gravity's dizzying well, of the flirting, the falling, the colour of now. The colour of quick, nearly never enough, of sweet while it lasts, of the fading to slow. The colour that falters, the colour of past, the weeks that say follow but do not say how. The last rags of colour, the monochrome days coming in like a sea mist, the months that say no, no colour November that sets in like rain, the colour of cooling, the nights that say go, but never say where, the colour of old, the colour of leaving, of little, of less, the colour of maybe and maybe again, the colour as data the DNA holds. In the dark, in the cold, the colour of waiting, the colour of yes.
Neither the vowels nor the consonants fly only in the mountains. They also buzz across lower landscapes to the north, and some call the words stopovers, where they display a sound variant, autonomous languages. Tricks like this make it easy to speak of 10,000 languages in total.
I put it under the heading borrowed sentences, because it's not mine. I love this bit. As I watch, it arches its back, and each layer of landscape bristles. Though bristles is a word of too much commotion for it. Details are no longer part of a grouping in a picture of which I am the focal point. The focal point is everywhere. Nothing has reference to me, the looker. This is how the earth must see itself.
I've read about it. Try it. Yeah, okay.
I'm thinking about time as an action, as a thing that's made visible in bodies. To trace a beetle's path on the mountain, on the back of a hand, in the air. To pull my limbs into the forms of water on the mountain. That cloud seemed, at first, a breath, held hovering on the ridgeline, before it took an impossible route for a human breath. Didn't sink, didn't rise, but meandered, full and uncanny. A mountain, breathing. I remember feeling my own breath catch, in sympathy, before I understood this. It was warm for November, so our breath stayed invisible. I must have heard it, or felt the effort of it in the climbing, but all I remember is the way the walk unfolded, almost without thought, inevitable. Just climbing, breathing bodies, timing time, outside time, inside mountain time.
So it's like coming to identify things as things of themselves. The words used to like kind of draw your attention to the things that make up the landscape that you're surrounded by.
Hen fechnas yna ti, ie.
Hefyd
efo afon. Ia, mewn, ar hynny'n enwys yna fan hyn. Mae'n fascinating. Wergodd, ie, Cai Gwyn. Faint weithiau mae'r enw yma'n dod fyny, ie, cael graff. Faint o ffermydd sydd efo do wernen, wergodd.
Ydych chi'n ffeindio enw yna? Sy'n nabod?
Mae'r ffermwyr yn gwybod, mae'n sy'n ar y gofnod yna yn ffodus, dwi'n meddwl no, a mae'n hartre fi ydy, os mae'r ceia mae'n cael ei wneud yn fwy, mae'n ffnotio'r cloddiau lawr a mae enw di flannu, ia.
Ceia, o wel.
O, ie.
Ac mae'n enwa hefyd, sy'n licio.
Mae chwilod symudliw hyfryd yn hydd ar fynydd. Mae nhw fel pantiau sy'n dal y golau ar y tir o'r pellter.
From the distance. They are drawn on a mountain map as stars, which if you follow with your eyes, makes a constellation.
When the planets appear in the sky then in a line? Oh, fory. Does it coming up a million pace? Planet.
A mountain is a clock. I spent a day moving around the small house, following the sun through the rooms. Later that day, Morwenna tried to dust a shadow away from a large piece of paper on the ground. Treiliais ddiwrnod yn symud o amgylch y tŷ twt yn dilyn yr haul drwy'r stafelloedd.
Bwt oedd o, millions a millions o years yn ôl. Mwt, a oedd y lle dan ddŵr a beth ydy. Wedyn, gafon nhw'r volcanoes a beth o felly, a bod hwnnw wedi sychu a di cledu'r mwt. A llechan dio hyn yma de.
I am really. Yeah. Say that later. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not used to it. Multi-part close harmonies. A ti, dyna ffordd da. Yeah, multi-part close harmonies.
Annwyl Esyllt, Annwyl Catrin. O'n I moyn I ddweud e eto, y stori ddywedodd Eirwen wrtha I un tro, am ei nain hithau yn cael ei dwyn I fyny yn Hebron, ar odre'r Wyddfa, a dysgu dweud yr amser drwy wylio'r golau'n disgyn I dyllau'r clogwyni. Enwodd ei nain y clogwyni'n y pedwar twll, o blegyd ymddangosau'r cysgodion fel tyllau, ac yn dibynnu beth oedden nhw, y cysgodion yn ei wneud, roedd ei nain yn medru dyfalu'r amser. Ond wyt ti'n dotio ar hynny? Y mynydd fel cloc, tragwyddol fynydd.
Clock.
Did you know that lesser horseshoe bats have a very interesting yearly cycle? Early spring, the women leave the men and together go to look for somewhere to cluster. They return for mating season, and then all the women leave together and have one baby bat each, which they raise for about 3 months, and then they all return to the men for hibernation in the cold winter. They have 2 types of sonar reading. The one we all know, which is to find their way around, but also a quieter one as a social sonar between each other. This inspired Cheryl Beer, our associate artist, to pen a bat lullaby to raise awareness of the secret species lesser horseshoe as part of her Natur and Byth commission.
Our resulting lesser horseshoe bat lullaby includes the sonar readings of lesser horseshoe bats in 2 ways. First, you hear the actual recording made by Cheryl during her visit on location with Bats of the Night Conservation Project to a maternity roost in the Gower, which we like to call a bat nursery. And secondly, Cheryl took a visual graph from a sonar reading and plotted it onto musical staves. The tenor recorder part that you hear being played is that of the sonar recording.
Cheryl then composed the accompanying lullaby melody for us, the women of Hemiola Choir, and used interview data from the Stars of the Night volunteers to pen the lyrics. Hemiola Choir have been meeting for 40 years, led by Delyth Holland, but during COVID we stopped meeting up. Our Bats lullaby has been a great way of bringing us back together again, and we hope that we can continue to do so after the project.
Cheryl then worked with Delyth, who arranged the music in such a way that we would be able to sight read it. We met with Cheryl to watch an introductory film and then started rehearsals. After every session, we kept a visitor's book to say how we felt and give feedback. Cheryl visited to see how we were getting on, and once she felt we were ready, we went to her home studio to record our bat lullaby.
Once recorded, Cheryl took us to Penllygr Valley Woods to make a video. She wrote a storyboard and collaborated with drone pilot Jarrow Media. We had a lovely day together in nature. Afterwards, Cheryl edited the film and then showed it to us for final editorial approval. We couldn't believe how beautifully it turned out, but most importantly, how wonderful it is to be part of raising awareness and changing attitudes towards the lesser horseshoe bats across Wales. Today, we are recording this narration, and we hope it gives you a peek behind the scenes showing you our process. You will also hear some of our feedback throughout the journey of this wonderful project.
I can imagine singing that to a child in bed at night to get them to go to sleep. It's lovely. Lovely lilting song.
Well, I think having practiced it last time when it was just a soprano voice, I think having the alto singing an octave lower has really mellowed the sound, and it just feels a lot more, well, a lot softer and more caressing really than just the soprano pitch.
Brilliant, thanks, Jane.
It's just been fantastic, just being here. It's just so atmospheric, and the colours are just stunning, and you can imagine the bats sort of weaving around, and it's just beautiful.
Quite the experience which I think most of us would never have ever dreamt of having, and it was wonderful. Brought a whole new aspect to Penllygr. We always liked it, but now it's taken on a different complexion altogether.
Well, thank you for letting us come and share this lovely experience, this beautiful place. The atmosphere is just tremendous, and I think today has been fab.
It's wonderful being just with all this autumn colour, and the sun has shone all day, and we've had a lovely, lovely time doing it.
Do you think it's important to connect with nature?
Absolutely, yes. If we're just being in the outdoors, in the light, in the natural sunlight or the natural evening light, it's wonderful. Yes, it's a very important part of our lives.
And how do you think it is that the choir is raising awareness of such a precious species, the lesser horseshoe bat?
Yes, well, like John says, it's a good cause, and we should. I've told a few friends about it's so yes, how amazing that the horseshoe bats go. All the women go together to raise the children. That is such a completely new concept to think of animals doing that. That's wonderful.
I've belonged to Dallas Little Singing Group for many years, and that's why we're doing this now. And it's an honour because this about the bats is the most fascinating little piece. How it came about is amazing, and we're all, as ladies sitting here, we're all amazed how it's been notated. And I was reminded when we were just practicing it now of the little lullaby that my mum taught me when I was a little girl. You can really appreciate this maternal bat feeling, and all us women here together. It's very meaningful.
They come from miles around to see the High Brown Fritillary. I've met women from Llanelli, men from Lancashire. People from the Midlands come down and say, Paul, can I come and see one? Byth Brown, the butterfly count. When the butterfly's on the wing, rarity on the doorstep. One year there are only 7 a year. Orange and black checkerboard. It's got pearls on it. That rich, velvety, orangey red. No other fritillary's got. It feels I have not seen you before. We're talking about extinction, are we?
They thought it was important.